Here we are at DST's 25th Anniversary Fan Fest. Today, Marketing Supervisor Zach Oat is talking to sculptor Chris Dahlberg, the artist behind the Invincible action figure line and many of their Marvel Select figures. Take it away, Zach.
Thank you, Natasha. With me today is sculptor Chris Dahlberg, the Lone Horseman, who is working currently on our Marvel Select and Invincible action figure lines. And we want to talk to him about his work at DST and also his career. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we'll start at the beginning. How did you get interested in sculpting?
Oh, that goes back a long way. I think I was playing with clay, drawing, and doing all kinds of things as a child. Super obsessed with monsters and sci-fi and all kinds of creatures and things like that. So I started pretty young and just never put it down.
What kind of a formal art training did you receive, if any?
I have a master's degree. I also have an undergraduate degree. I went to Lyme Academy of Fine Arts in Lyme, Connecticut, which is a very old traditional school where I learned most of my anatomy and kind of formal training in figurative sculpture. And then I eventually got my master's at Parsons School of Design in Manhattan. And that was more of a contemporary art school, focusing on conceptual art. So I got kind of a good balance between two different schools of art and art making.
Was it difficult to transition from clay, from a traditional sculpting background, to digital sculpting?
I'll be honest with you, I was very opposed to the digital thing when it started kind of coming into play. I have been working with my hands all my life, so it was a difficult challenge, but I was also seeing so many artists making really incredible work, and you clearly could see the change in the industry. So I kind of reluctantly went into it, but as soon as I dove into it, I immediately fell in love with it. It's truly just another medium, is another tool to put in the box and kind of learn. And I'm still learning on both ends.
You're currently working on Marvel Select for us, but you grew to fame partially working on DC characters from Mattel. Did you read a lot of comic books growing up?
I didn't read a lot of comic books growing up. I grew up in a pretty rural area, so I didn't really have access to a lot of comics and so forth. I would always go to the library, and like I said before, I was absolutely obsessed with monsters, creatures. I grew up with Creature Feature, Chiller, Twilight Zone, and basically movie monsters. I think my first exposure to comics was Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night, which I freaked out about because, again, it was, involved the whole monster thing. But I was kind of a late bloomer to the whole comic book scene. But again, just it was for me. It was always about monsters and creatures.
Have you been watching Invincible since you're working on the toy line? There's some pretty cool monsters in that. What do you think of it?
I think it's great. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. I remember when it came out. I've only gotten through the first season. I'm getting into the second season now. And yeah, I mean, being able to work on the line has just been fantastic. I was a big fan of Otley's work when the comic came out, and just loved that work.
Now, you've had a lot of experience sculpting action figures, although you came from a more fine art sculpting background. What are some of the challenges of sculpting when you have to take articulation into consideration? Are there different ways to approach a figure?
Yes, absolutely, and that has also been kind of a learning transitional stage, because a lot of the articulation that I was doing early on was very basic, and it was less about the articulation, more about the sculpture. And as we've evolved, it's definitely a balance of both, but the articulation and the engineering is really, really important in order to maintain, like a good anatomical look and feel, but also have these really dynamic poses. So it's always challenging. I really enjoy that part of it. The engineering part of it is very interesting to me. And I've definitely seen a progression from stuff that I did early on in the McFarlane days to, you know, what I'm doing now, especially with DST.
People have been responding amazingly to your classic Captain American figure that you sculpted for us. Was it a challenge to capture such a specific look?
I was, you know, working with you guys on it, and it was kind of a back and forth. This is always a team sport to me, and I think it always has been. There's so many other people involved in you know, kind of choreographing how it should look, what it should look like, and that was just I really like and love how that piece came out, and it was just so much fun to work with you guys on it, and I'm really happy with the fan response to it. So I'm hoping that the other ones to follow will be just as well received.
Your bust of Frank Sinatra is in the Hoboken.
Sure. I was trying to pitch to the town. I wanted to do a life-size statue of Sinatra years ago, and you know, I'd kind of been slowly working on it, but mainly working on a bust. By the time I had finished the bust, which actually is right back there, the model that I was sculpting, by the time I was finished with it, they had already commissioned someone to do the statue. So I've got a very close friend of mine here in town who's born and raised in Hoboken, very well connected with the community and the politicians in town, and also the museum. So we approached the museum and said we had this bust, and you know, would it be possible to put something together? And they flipped. They were really excited about it, and the commission basically got transferred to doing a bronze bust of Sinatra, which is now on permanent display there.
That's great. What are you working on now outside of your toy work?
Outside of my toy work, the big thing I'm working on right now is I'm changed gears, and because I'm also a huge fan of Marlon Brando. And the film On the Waterfront was filmed here in Hoboken, and has really strong ties to the history of Hoboken, longshoremen, and you know, all that was going on at the time with the unions and the mob and so forth. The movie is absolutely amazing if you haven't seen it. But I designed and sculpted a maquette of Brando from the film, and I'm currently pitching it to the town as a life-size statue. It's been very well received. We had the 70th anniversary this weekend, and everybody seems to be really excited about bringing this to fruition. So my hope is that will hopefully be something that I can do coming down the pike.
Obviously, you're sculpting these very realistic portraits of these, you know, very famous people. Do you enjoy that as much as sculpting monsters, or more than sculpting monsters, or is it nice to be able to dip your feet into either pond? It's
definitely nice to be able to go in both directions, because I love sculpting monsters and creatures, and you know, it's just those are my roots. That's what I grew up with and what I enjoyed as a child. And when I got into the fine art end of it, I was completely focused on doing realistic, commemorative type sculpture, bronze work, things like that. And again, this is back in the early 90s. I stepped back into the toy industry, working with a small company back in Connecticut, and Design Innovation. Shout out to Design Innovation. They kind of gave me my start in the toy industry, and I've kind of come full circle. So it's a weird thing, and now being able to do both is really just a wonderful thing. I'm truly blessed.
Thank you so much for talking with us today, Chris. I'm a big fan of your work. I have been for a long time, so it's been an honor, and I look forward to seeing more great stuff for you in the future.
Thank you so much, Zach. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Be sure to check out our other interviews with DST team members, and check out our showcases where we're showing off items from Star Wars, Marvel, and the world of entertainment. So thank you for coming, and we'll talk to you soon.